I've got a set of samples here I've been testing lately. There's no real theme here. Several of these are new releases, but mostly just things I'd been curious to try for one reason or another, and I recently got samples of them. I'm wearing 2 of them on my wrists right now, so I thought I would get on here and talk about them. First up, a really nice and exciting release. I'd never tried anything by Sultan Pasha, but he tends to get good reviews among those who are kind of into the artisanal, oody, expensive material range. He seems to be one of the better ones that really knows how to make a composition and not just throw expensive materials together. So I'd always been kind of curious watching on the sideline about this line, but he released, I believe, maybe for the first time, parfum versions of a few of his fragrances instead of the usual attars. And they came in at Lucky Scent, and so I threw this one in the bag, although I'm pretty sure I actually threw the iris in the bag, but what I was sent was the amber, so quintessentially amber. And much to my disappointment, about 2 days after I placed this, they put up a discovery set of the 3 that they have, but it was too late. I waited a few more days and that sold out. So this is the only one I've got right now, but I'm wearing this on my wrist, and indeed it is a beautiful, well done amber. I gotta say, it does remind me of other ambers I've smelled, specifically Amber Sultan, the Serge Lutens, the iconic amber. It's surprisingly similar to that, but also I'm reminded of Maître Gantier et Parfumiers Amber Presso. So it's the resin amber, it's not the overly sweet amber, it's also the kind of real ambergris amber. So there's all these nice resonance notes in the base. You get sort of the airiness of ambergris, the airy like salinity of ambergris with a bunch of just kind of warm resins and spices. It's really well done. I appreciate that it doesn't feel overly gloopy, which this style can. It has kind of enough air in it. I've been kind of smelling it wafting in the air quite well. It's the kind where you go up close and you get a different experience from the kind of bubble that it creates around you. And that's just off one spray on skin, but it is billed as an extrait. Let's spray it on this paper for a fresh take. So it cites citrus, aldehyde, spices, rose, amber, labdanum, benzoin, styrax, musk, patchouli, vetiver, sandalwood, vanilla, ambergris. And indeed, there is a brightness that doesn't read as any particular citrus, but and aldehydes give just like a touch of fizziness. It's not really obvious, but it gives a really nice kind of classical structure to this. The bright kind of fizzy aldehydic citrus at the top, slowly and beautifully transitioning into more kind of resinous, warm territory. It's really well done. Amber being not my favorite kind of perfume genre, I feel like I don't need a whole lot of them, and it might be redundant with, well, just simply Amber Sultan. Probably side by side, I would find that this is maybe a little more complex, definitely probably stronger, but I think in enough of this similar vein for me to kind of be happy with what I have. But if you're an amber fiend, this one's really nice. It certainly is expensive, but everything's kind of expensive, and at least it's well done. And you do get bang for your buck, you get your money's worth. Yeah, it really has a nice smooth transition because the opening, I'm getting a lot more freshness and a lot more of that sort of seaside ambergris salinity. The later dry down on my arm, which is a few hours old now, much more kind of warm, chewy resinous. So yeah, really well done. I'm definitely curious to try the others, although I think looking at Lucky Scent, yeah, their little discovery set is sold out, unfortunately. And it's nice they've started to offer sprays, I notice, especially of newer arrivals. So several of these are sprays. So the next new arrival, and in a similar category as Towers, L'air du Désert Marocain, the new flanker Noir Elixir. Is this, I wonder if he's kind of a little tongue-in-cheek joking about these Noir Elixir things. So I've stated before, I've tried all the kind of famous classic Towers, and they never really hit for me. There's something kind of like overly severe in the dryness of their spices that makes it difficult for me. And the Tower Odd, I think, is a very personal taste thing, and I found I'm not a huge fan of it. But this I actually liked. Maybe the increased density takes away some of that dryness that reads as a little bit cold or harsh to me. It's still recognizably Tower. I do have a little Lucky Scent dabber of the original of this, but I haven't put a side by side them. But I actually quite like it. I also wore this on skin once as well. It is really strong, but thankfully never goes into sort of a scratchy amberwoods annoying kind of strength, but it is quite powerful. Again, it has those really kind of dry spices. I just imagine like those spice stores where they have all those sacks out and this kind of dusty, dry spices in the air. It's kind of more unique as an amber. It's not 100% that classic sort of chewy, resinous vanilla amber that the Sultan Pasha is. But yeah, there is, I think I said this in the video where I talked about Tower. I read the Tower Odd as the Air Accord. I get this sort of somewhat synthetic sense of air, almost like when you buy new electronics or go into like this clean air, but it's like ever so slightly like plasticky. I get a little bit of that, but for some reason, maybe, yeah, the density, it almost smells aqueous too, like something like cold mineral or water running over cold minerals. But yeah, it's nice. It's interesting. I'll have to wear that some more to see if I like it enough to consider a purchase. Again, very expensive, but also very concentrated. I'll also have to go back and revisit my little sample of the original layer, but certainly well done. You may groan that, it's a flanker. And I also tried the other one, Au Cœur du Désert, which is also meant to be a darker, more concentrated. So maybe I'll come back and do a side-by-side of all three if I can dig out those samples. But so far, it's actually the Tower I've liked the most. And I've not tried them all, but I've tried many and most of the sort of really well-known ones. So I'm not sure what else to say about it. We'll read some of the notes. Bergamot, lemon, petitgrain, spices, labdanum, leather, jasmine, ambergris, oak moss, cedarwood, vetiver, patchouli. Yeah, so once again, I think there's a nice balance of bright and dark. It doesn't feel overly gloopy. It has, shades of light and dark. I tend to not like things that have a sort of muted dark tone to them throughout. I always need a little bit of lightness, whether that's coming from either the concentration, a light wear, or some citruses, or some, well, in this case, might be also the ambergris or the vetiver lifting things up, giving a little brightness. So yeah, I quite like it. I gave it a wear on the arm for one day, but I'll have to give it a full singular wear another day and see if I like it enough to drop the cash on it. So another one which is old and kind of in the just random category, I stopped by Aedes de Venustas recently to purchase a candle. Upcoming video on that brand about Astier de Viat. I guess it's Viate. I'm looking across the room and there's an accent on that last E. And I saw Palissandre d'Or, and I know what Palissandre wood is. Well, there was the Comme des Garçons Palissandre, which I have. And so I asked, is this a cedar fragrance? He said, yes. I tried it. I liked what I smelled, but in the store it came off as quite light. And then I was reading reviews, and it was quite interesting because some people said it was like nauseously strong. Other people, like just what people said about it was really all over the place. But he very nicely gave me a sample of that one to take home. And I'm also wearing it on wrist. This one's quite old, and I think when it came out, ambroxan was like a relatively novel material, and they do cite, first of all, three kinds, is it four? Yeah, three kinds of cedar: Virginia, Chinese, and Alaskan cedar, sandalwood, coriander, copahu, ambret, pink pepper, patchouli, nutmeg, cinnamon. But it also lists ambroxan, I think, on Fragrantica. So what's interesting about this is at first it did smell kind of familiar or nostalgic, like some other scents from that time period were brought to mind. And I think it might actually be the ambroxan. Maybe I'm thinking of something like Dior's Bois d'Argent. Now, I'm not an ambroxan hater as long as it's not overdone. I feel it often gives kind of an addictive warmth to a fragrance. But what's interesting is it does start out actually quite loud. I think in the kind of mists of the store and the other fragrances I missed that part. But there's an interesting freshness. I guess this is the pink pepper that's kind of aggressively bright and peppery, almost kind of sneezy at the opening, but not harsh, not scratchy, just like a real kind of pronounced brightness in the opening. And then I do get a big load of kind of ambroxany, kind of empty, musky warmth. Smelling it on skin, I'm getting more of the cedar. On my skin, it's gone to that more really kind of quiet, cedary stage. I think it's nice. I think it's interesting because it doesn't smell quite like anything else I've smelled before, while still making me feel maybe nostalgic for those ambroxany, woody perfumes. But I guess this is like if you take that profile that was kind of classic Dior under Eddie Slimane profile, Bois d'Argent and Dior Homme, you subtract the iris and just leave behind kind of the woods, the cedar and the ambroxan and ambrette, and you get this. So I think it's going to wear as a very subtle sort of your skin but better kind of skin scent, but a little bit different. So I suppose if you're looking for something like that but want something really under the radar, give this a try. I don't think I'll be buying a bottle, but happy to have tried it. I think it's one that doesn't really get talked about at all from the line. So that's Palissandre d'Or from Aedes de Venustas. Up next, another one that I became curious about because it showed up on discounters is Filippo Sorcinelli's Unarus. This is from the set inspired by organ stops, and the bottles look really cool. And it's described as sort of, it's one of those sort of indie incense and aquatic combinations. I say one of those because I'm aware of quite a few by now. There's Serge Lutens Dans le Bleu qui Petit, which I have and I really enjoy. There's well, maybe there's not so many, but there's other big kind of aggressive aquatic perfumes from other small brands. I'm also thinking of Silence the Sea from Strangelove, which I have a 15 ml. Not on purpose, but because I bought a kind of set of 15 mLs of all their fragrances. And so that was in there. This I'm glad I tested. I was really tempted to just buy it from the discounter, but it goes a little bit down the wrong side of that kind of aggressive aquatic smell. It definitely has this funky, almost like clams or like almost milky lactonic aspect to it. And yeah, balanced with this dry kind of frankincense, incense, and spices. It's really nice, but I think it's really similar to Silence the Sea, and that is more than enough of that fragrance is 15 ml for kind of a challenging, funky sea fragrance. And I think Dans le Bleu qui Petit is much more wearable. It's maybe a little bit more simple. I find the dry down of that gets maybe a little bit flat and quiet, but that also makes it much more wearable because otherwise that sort of inky sea smell could be quite challenging. This one, when I wore it, I felt like it just droned on and just got stronger and louder and started to really bug me. So I'm super glad I didn't buy a bottle. I think it's really just the volume and the tenacity of the sea notes that make this pretty unpalatable to me. I think the smell in general I like and I don't mind, but yeah, feeling like I dodged a bullet because I can't imagine a spray from an entire bottle since I was just dabbing this and that was already too strong for me. But an interesting perfume. I would like to try some more from these organ stop line because the bottles are really cool. I'm a musician, I'm a piano player, so having an organ stop perfume sounds really nice. And another one, again, not really up my alley. I've been reading the base notes takes on this and it has a lot of fans, but I sort of surmise that those people are fans of the line in general. This is Come by Bogue Perfume. I tried Mem back in the day and it makes me want to cry, not in a good way. And I didn't like that. I found it overly animalic. There's just so much going on in these perfumes, which I suppose is the draw if you're into it. But it reminds me a little bit of the way that, you know, you mix too many colors together and you just get brown. This is a frequent criticism of amateur or indie perfumers. And of course, Antonio Gardoni is no amateur. He's been around. His work is lauded by many. But for me, it's just like too many things results in the end, just kind of nothing. Why I went out of my way to try this when I know I don't particularly like the brand is it was described by many as a very green fragrance. And I thought, okay, maybe the greenness will add like a lighter touch that I'll enjoy. But to me, it's like a mix of herbs and salad, but then with a really harsh smokiness coming up the bottom. I think it's that smokiness. It gives you that sort of smoked meat, like you're eating a crushed herb salad and in the distance someone is barbecuing meat and the smoke is blowing in your face and you're like a vegetarian and you're pissed off to be interrupted by the smoked meat smell. So to me, there's just too many things that don't really come together. But again, some people, they live for the funk, the complexity, the uniqueness. I'm sure as it dries down, it goes through many stages. I also tested this on skin before a shower in case I didn't like it. And I was glad I had done that because after a couple hours, I couldn't wait to get it off me. So it cites a whole ton of things. Fig, bergamot, olibanum, cade. Maybe it's the cade. Cade can be really harsh and smoky. Benzoin, black tea, labdanum, oud, tonka bean, jasmine, vanilla, civet. I usually don't like civet or civet replacements. Honey, musk, ylang ylang. And there's one in here I skipped because I don't know how to say it. Helichrysum. Yeah, now that I read the word cade, it has like a camphorous green. Now it's reminding me more of like the charcoal from an old campfire, like a spent campfire in the woods. I think if it just wasn't so dense and so busy and kind of cluttered, there's something I would enjoy in that, but I don't know. Maybe I'll give a very light spray and just let it dry down an entire day and see if there's something redeeming about it. But as kind of a general fan of lighter fragrances, as a fan of clarity of structure, as a fan of classic French beauty, this one is not up my alley at all. But it might be up yours. I think actually the price is decent, $230. This is the cheapest of all these extras in 50 ml. Of course, aside from Unarus. And it is quite strong, so I imagine that much would last you forever. Yeah, every time I smell it, the smoke now it smells like old cigarette smoke. I think it's really the smoke that bothers me. It really seems to be burying everything else. It's like the smoke is up front, and then there's some sort of interesting camphorous green little accents dancing in the background. But yeah, there you go. Not for me. So that's all for today. Just some random perfumes I've been sampling. Many of them seem to have a similar feel of these very dense elixir extract type scents, which sometimes work for me, but usually the kind that remain kind of muted but long lasting, that just give you a beautiful, warm, long lasting glow, like the Amouage Jubilation 40, which never really pushes off skin, but I think that's for the better because such a strong smell constantly pushing really starts to annoy me and bug me throughout the day. So that's my take on these. None of them really to my taste, but happy to have smelled them all. I guess the Tower is one that I will be revisiting and maybe considering since I don't own any Towers as of now. And I'll catch you later.